All right, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delays with the technology here. My name is Genese Sodikoff, and I want to welcome you all today to the Ebola Forum at Rutgers. This event was sponsored by Rutgers Centers for Global Advancement and International Affairs, the Gaia Centers, and it's one of a number of public events reflecting their biennial theme of global health. The Gaia Centers has supported our working group, comprised of an interdisciplinary group of faculty and graduate students, called Zoonosis and Society, Interdisciplinary Perspectives of Animal to Human Disease. Members of this working group collaborated together to identify experts for today's forum. Our purpose has been to study multiple facets of zoonotic disease, including ecological conditions that give rise to zoonosis, vector populations, and the evolution of viruses, the dynamics of cross-species transmission, the epidemiology and evolving scientific knowledge of zoonoses, the healthcare services, infrastructures, and drug therapies available to control and treat infectious disease, the politics of fear, cultural practices and ideologies affecting disease communicability and treatment, and the global political economy of disease. Who gets sick, who dies, who has access to care and medicine, what diseases are worth developing drugs for. This was our research agenda for the year. There were many cases to focus on: SARS, MERS, the bubonic plague, staph infection, rabies, ancient intestinal parasites. Then the Ebola outbreak began in Guinea last winter. To date, the virus has infected more than 5,800 people and killed more than 2,800 since it first broke out in Guinea in December 2013. The death rate is climbing, now at over 70%. Ebola's ground zero was in Miliandu, a remote rural village of Guinea. On December 26th, a 2-year-old boy fell ill and died 2 days later. We know that funerary practices, the touching of the corpse, caused the disease to spread among his kin, and from Guinea to Sierra Leone in a matter of days. No one really knew the source or cause of this illness. By March 2014, Médecins Sans Frontières suspected a hemorrhagic fever, possibly Ebola, previously only known in Central Africa. The virus claimed scores of victims quickly, not only rural villagers unaccustomed to taking precautions against infection, but also experienced doctors and nurses. Sierra Leone's famous Dr. Sheikh Umar Khan at the front lines of the fight against Ebola died. Then Americans Dr. Kent Brantley and an aid worker Nancy Wright-Bowl were repatriated to the US, and they recovered. The politics of race and privilege stoke resentments. Meanwhile, the virus and fear of the virus have spread like wildfire in regions where roads and healthcare services have been devastated by civil wars of the late 1990s and early 2000s, in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and where people's distrust of the state and of hospitals, learned from terrible experiences, have undermined attempts to control the epidemic. Mining in West Africa has ravaged the rainforests, bringing people and non-human primates into closer proximity to disease vectors, crowding populations into increasingly pathogenic forest fragments, or forcing some disease-carrying species to inhabit human settlements when trees disappear. Western narratives of Africa as the dark continent, the white man's grave, all the old familiar prejudices have been resuscitated and updated for the 21st century. Take the viral internet meme of Ebola-chan, a female anime character designed as an anthropomorphized representation of the Ebola virus, the pink locks of her hair as the iconic coils of the virus. In Nigeria, Ebola-chan spread on the internet, became feared as a plague goddess, summoned by a cult of Westerners wishing to wage Afrocide, reinforcing a fear of foreign medical practitioners. Ebola is inspiring music today, such as the infectious song about Ebola by Liberian artist known as Shadow and DC-12. It is very catchy. I played it, I didn't put it on video. It was distracting me from writing this introduction last night. Once uploaded to the internet, this song went viral in Monrovia, in the streets and on cell phones, inspiring a dance where dancers mimic kissing and hugging from a distance, a way to keep safe from infection. This song is one small way that West Africans are fighting this disease in the context of acute resource lack, and in collaboration with international organizations and medical practitioners who also face obstacles and dangers of all kinds. What was barely on the radar of people's consciousness in the United States last summer is now in headlines everywhere. Every day now we're flooded with reports about Ebola. It was only a matter of time before it jumped continents. Thomas Eric Duncan, a Liberian national who had assisted an Ebola victim while in West Africa, traveled to Dallas in late September, took ill, but was turned away at the hospital having been misdiagnosed with sinusitis, exposing the lack of preparation of US hospitals in dealing with this. Nurse Nina Pham was infected despite wearing protective gear. Dallas was the ground zero of Ebola in America. The fear fueled an extreme opposite approach in New Jersey. Casey Hickox, returning from a stint in Sierra Leone treating Ebola patients, was quarantined in an outdoor isolation tent in Newark on suspicion of harboring the virus. What is the appropriate protocol for controlling outbreaks in the US? How do we implement scientifically informed policies and contain irrational fear when this fear becomes an exploitable resource itself? In the United States, the science of infectious disease met the politics of the midterm elections. Analysts say that Ebola was on the minds of voters when they went to the polls, which may partly explain the Republican sweep. The response to Ebola has been likened to the response to the post-9/11 anthrax attacks in the US. The use of the military, the increasing surveillance of borders, quarantine, like Guantanamo, the increasing securitization of national borders. We wanted to understand this disease from all angles, from multiple scales, from the global political economy and global epidemiology of this disease, to the molecular structure of this filovirus, to its multi-species social lives and histories. So we're privileged to have with us today this interdisciplinary and distinguished panel of speakers who will offer us an introduction to their work, since the time is too brief to hear long talks on and about Ebola. First, I want to announce an unfortunate cancellation by Dr. Estrella Lasry of Doctors Without Borders. A couple of weeks ago, she was called away to Monrovia, and other staff at the New York office of Doctors Without Borders is overwhelmed at the present times, understandably. This changes the timing of the program somewhat in the second half. We may use up this extra time during the course of this panel. We may have already used it for this setting up. Well, we'll see. So I'd like to introduce now our lineup of speakers. Our first in the lineup is Dr. Bonnie Hewlett. She comes to us from Washington State University, Vancouver. She began working in Central Africa as a registered nurse in neonatal intensive care and later pursued a PhD in anthropology. She returned to Africa as a medical anthropologist, and she has lived, worked, and done research in the Central African Republic, Gabon, and the Republic of Congo. Together with her partner, Barry Hewlett, she was invited by the World Health Organization to assist in efforts to control an Ebola outbreak in the early 2000s. She offers insights into the social histories and cultural practices of people in the Congo Basin that contributed to disease communicability in her book, co-authored with Barry Hewlett, Ebola, Culture and Politics, The Anthropology of an Emergent Disease, published in 2008. She has also written Adolescent Identity, Evolutionary, Developmental, and Cultural Perspectives, 2013, and Listen, Here's a Story, Ethnographic Life Narratives from Aka and Gandu Women of the Congo Basin, 2012. Dr. Kevin Olival, a disease ecologist and evolutionary biologist with EcoHealth Alliance in New York, is also here. He uses molecular data to study the ecology and evolution of emergent infectious diseases, the population structure and phylogeography of large fruit bats, pteropus, and their parasites. He's interested in biodiversity conservation and most recently in the predictors of viral diversity in mammals, mammals' potential to be vectors of zoonosis, such as the megabats being key suspects in a number of spillover diseases. Dr. Catherine Bolton, from the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies and the Department of Anthropology at the University of Notre Dame. She has done extensive ethnographic research in Sierra Leone on violence, youth, and development, which informed the subject of her book, I Did It to Save My Life, Love and Survival in Sierra Leone, published by the University of California Press, their series on public anthropology. Her current research interest focuses on bushmeat consumption and zoonosis. Dr. William Halperin, a field epidemiologist with expertise in infectious disease, as well as a preventative medicine physician who for many years worked at the Centers for Disease Control, is a professor chair of preventative medicine and community health at the New Jersey Medical School and is the associate dean of public health at Rutgers Newark. He's also a professor of quantitative methods in the School of Public Health here at Rutgers. He served approximately 30 years in the US military, the public health service there. He has numerous publications on public health problems, particularly in workplace settings, and has an active role in developing the protocol for preventing disease outbreaks, including Ebola, in the New York, New Jersey area. Dr. Anne Kelly, a medical anthropologist at the University of Exeter in England. She has studied medical interventions and disease control projects, including malaria control interventions in sub-Saharan Africa. After her doctoral degree in anthropology, she joined the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where she pursued a research agenda that focused on the practices of malaria research in East and West Africa. She's also been carrying out research in the outbreaks of viral hemorrhagic fevers, Lassa fever, Ebola, and Marburg in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Her books include The Anthropology of Ignorance, in 2012, with J. Mayer C. Hyde, and The Value of Transnational Medical Research, with P.W. Geisler. Among numerous articles, I mention her wonderful 2014 article, Material Proximities and Hotspots Toward an Anthropology of Viral Hemorrhagic Fevers, published in Medical Anthropology Quarterly this year. Dr. Kartik Chandran, where are you, Kartik? Oh, there you are. Has a PhD in biochemistry and is a professor in the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, the Department of Microbiology and Immunology. In addition, he is the Harold Uriel Block Faculty Scholar in Virology. He's made numerous media appearances on radio and TV, including MSNBC, the BBC World Service, BBC Radio, Al Jazeera, the New York Times, CBS News, and something I want to watch, a show on the science channels, Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. Not that I don't want to watch everything else. The Science Channel, an episode called, Is a Zombie Apocalypse Possible? For the past several years, he has been a key player in the development of drug therapies, or drug cocktails, to treat Ebola virus infection. Dr. Damien Caillot, where are you, Damien? PhD in veterinarian. He's the program director of Brower's Gorilla Program with the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund International, based in Atlanta, Georgia, and has an affiliation with the Center for Geographic Information Systems at the Georgia Institute of Technology. He comes to us today from Kigali, Rwanda, where he spent the last, I'm not sure how many weeks or months, in the Rwandan forest studying gorilla and chimpanzee populations, population dynamics and social networks that may make them vulnerable to infectious disease, including Ebola. He's interested in wildlife conservation. He's also investigated the recovery capacity of wildlife populations to earlier Ebola outbreaks in Central Africa. Would you please join me in welcoming our speakers?